Hey everybody, and welcome to, I guess, another one of these live streams where I look at FPGA software. Today, we're looking at the MiSTER Pi. Let me switch to that camera for you. And we've got a new box here. So, this was probably a month or more ago at this point. We looked at the Qualico MiSTER multi-system setup that they had. It was my first experience dealing with any MiSTER stuff, and today we're looking at another one of these, but a different device, kind of. So what we've got is a new device from Taki Udon. Let's open this up. This is the MiSTER Pi Retro Gaming FPGA board. And what this is basically the huge multi-system that I have here that's it's kind of halfway plugged in here. That's much larger than this entire box, which is kind of an all-in-one kit. It's all put together. It looks less like what you'd probably see of a stacked up Raspberry Pi board or development board of some kind. And it's got this nice little shell, and it's, has the tap to where I can put cards on and do all this stuff. The MiSTER Pi is a simpler version of that. And the main thing that it was trying to solve, or I guess is solving in this case, is that this board that controls this is very expensive. It's gone up and up in price, and this was an attempt to make this cheaper for people to get into and have access to this board, because the MiSTER is the project. MiSTER is the thing that everyone is contributing to and adding new cores to play new games and let you play games on new systems and do all of this amazing stuff that the developers have done for this. But the hardware has gotten more and more expensive and kind of raise that barrier of entry there. So what Taki Udon was hoping to achieve with this, from what I understand, is basically make it more affordable, make it so anyone could hop into this at a much lower price. And there are multiple prices for this. There's the $99 entry version, which is, I think you can do a pre-order still for these. They're coming out in waves. This is batch 2 that I have here. And I should say this, I paid for this. I don't, I think you could probably tell by my numbers. I do not have sponsorships. No one's sending me stuff for free. This is just something I bought because I was very interested in it. It went on sale. I managed to grab one, and I was just really interested to check it out. So this is hopefully here to lower the cost of FPGA gaming, let people get into the MiSTER project and experience the really high quality games that you can play on this and the different outputs you can do, sending it to an old CRT or a new LCD monitor or OLED or whatever you want to do. So yeah, let's open this without more delay and take a look at this. So it just shipped in this big brown box here, obviously within a kind of weatherproof wrap. And this is the MiSTER Pi batch 2 here. We'll look at the back of it. And what it comes with, this is the package I got, which is the, what is it? I don't know if it even says it here. This is like the all-in-one package. I think it says on the inside. Spoilers, I have opened this just so I could confirm that it was going to work and wouldn't spend this whole stream debugging stuff. But what this is the MiSTER Pi itself, which I personally feel like is an odd name because it's not a Raspberry Pi. I don't know if Pi is used in like other forms of kind of hobby stuff, so that's not confusing for others. But for me, it reminds me of a Raspberry Pi, which this is not, because it's a FPGA system. The Field Programmable Gate Array, I believe Gate Array is what it is. So name's a little odd, but regardless, this is the MiSTER system itself. The DE10 Nano, I believe, is the official version of this. That's the thing that's gone up and up in price as people have made more accessories and made more cores, and it's been used by more people. That price has shot up. This alone, if you were to buy the cheapest kit for $99 or $95 on sale, if you do a pre-order today or whenever those are available, they're currently all $5 off. $95 gets you the MiSTER Pi, and then I believe the USB-C cable. Maybe not the cable, but you probably have a USB-C cable. And that would let you play a lot of older systems. Anything, I think it caps out at kind of PlayStation 1, N64, and Saturn are a little out of reach with the base system here. But still, for that price, the quality of stuff you could get out of here is pretty incredible. I got the more bundled together version with a bunch of accessories just because I wanted to test everything out. But the entry fee for this is, you know, $99 MSRP, $95 on sale. And it would let you play a lot of the stuff that we're going to look at today. But my version came with acrylic cover, standoff, so it makes this nice little box, the fan, and then I/O for getting all the extra USB ports and things in there that I was interested in. It also comes with 128 megabytes of SD RAM. And this is important for those higher end consoles, as far as I understand. The PlayStation 1, N64, and Saturn need that. Maybe some other cores do. I'm new to this, so I'm just excited about it and want to talk about it. But I'm sure, and I know, there are many people out there, like Bob from Retro RGB, and Lou from Lou's Retro Source, and so many other creators I'm not thinking of at this moment that do this stuff and have much more in depth, but I just think it's cool. Yeah, it comes with the USB hub that allows you to obviously hook more stuff in, and then the I/O board, which I believe is different outputs, so you can do the VGA out and do the classic console, because I believe, and again, we're going to open this up and point at the ports, but I believe by default this just comes with the HDMI, and then the VGA is the addition in here. But just open it up and we've got two little things inside. So this is the pack I got. You can buy these separately, so you could get the base model for $99, and then you could upgrade it with the I/O board, with the USB headers, all that stuff. If you wanted to kind of jam pack it, you can buy the SD RAM separately, so you can kind of build this out as you get interested in it. You could start at that low level and then build it up, which I think is cool. But yeah, that's the basis for this. This is the turbo pack that I got, which is everything all together. The other accessories in the box are a couple things I added in just because I didn't have these and was interested in seeing it. So USB-C cable, obviously, to power it. This one is notable in that the MiSTER that I have in the Mars Qualico package has a just like barrel plug that you use to power it, and this one uses USB-C. Oh, and I realized that I was monitoring on my phone and it has started playing it. That was very distracting. So USB-C cable on this one is helpful just because it's easier to connect, I guess. But more on this in a minute. The other things I got were these snack adapters. So snack is a USB protocol, I want to say. I'm probably getting that wrong. What the snack port on the MiSTERs is meant to do, it's not meant to hook up any USB accessory. It's meant to hook up these very specific snack adapters that let you take any old controllers you have and plug it into this port and use it on the MiSTER. We'll talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but the idea of this is to, on the MiSTER, be able to use your real, your OEM controllers on this device and not have to, you know, get latency with Bluetooth or even RF or do anything else. And if you just feel nostalgic for those controllers or feel like the new remakes of them don't work as well, that's helpful for that. Let's look at the turbo pack itself. This has kind of a Genesis style, or I guess this is Master System at this point when it had this kind of style, which I think is cool. The little grid and everything. I like the kind of branding on this device. It looks neat to me. And let's open it up, and this is what I received in the mail. So it's just all put together, which honestly, I did not know was going to be the case. I thought that I was going to get to assemble it, or I guess it was going to take time to assemble, so it might have delayed this video. So maybe this is nice that it came fully assembled. It is nice. It's all put together. We'll pull it out of the case here. And there was nothing for me to fuss with, which I was kind of interested in comparing like the setup of this compared to the like all-in-one system I got with the MiSTER Multi-System Qualico thing that I showed last time in these videos. I was kind of looking forward to putting this together because it would just be a different experience than kind of getting an out-of-the-box built up, everything's ready. I did not, I guess, get to do that because it's already assembled, but the case and everything, like I didn't have to spend time doing this, which is kind of nice. I just honestly didn't look into it. Got the notification that they were going on sale and frantically went and checked out. So I wasn't paying much attention myself, but it comes with the fan to cool it down here. It has buttons to trigger the reset the whole device, which takes you back to like selecting any core you want, it on-screen display pull up, and then this user button that I do not know what it does. I haven't clicked it many times. The other things it comes with here is the snack port. So that's where you're going to use this controller adapter. If I can look at my monitor and do this, I don't know what I'm doing that. This is what would plug in here, and you would basically be able to use a Super Nintendo controller. It really hangs off the side, so I've seen a lot of people recommend that you get a USB male to female extender so that you can actually have this not hanging out the side and maybe getting snapped off or something. But the point of that port is not for anything else except for these snack adapters in there. And you can buy these on like MiSTER add-ons is where I've gotten a lot myself. This came with this MiSTER Pi. And then the other thing we have, this is the USB on the very bottom. So it has extra ports for all this USB stuff. USB power 1 and 2, what do those do? I assume they supply power somehow, but I truly don't know. I'm new to this stuff, so I'll at least talk through like the basic features that I understand, and you know, if you have more questions, I can point you towards people who probably have the answers. I'm just excited to talk about this. You've got the Ethernet port, which will be helpful because this does have update scripts on it, so you can just run it while in Ethernet and get all the updates to any software or cores or wallpapers or really anything you want. Let me zoom in so we can actually see this a little bit better. So it's got all that stuff. As far as I understand, this is a debugging port here, possibly. And ADC input, no idea what that is. Sorry about that. We have the, I believe this is the I/O board itself, which is this top layer of this kind of stack. This is what sends the VGA output and then the audio through a 3.5mm jack. There are a bunch of nice adapters for this because this might be HD15 is the maybe standard on there. Long story short, this lets you take this VGA and then send it to component, composite, anything else you want there to get it onto a CRT and to display it on your retro monitor of some kind. So I find that very cool. This is why I was interested in this, is that you can both output HDMI, a super clean 1080p image, you can do all the integer scaling, you can throw it into the retro tank and scale it up, or just plop it on your TV and go from there, or you can, you know, hook up all your old consoles and do that. But if you were buying just the basic board, it's just this middle row. It is the HDMI out, the power in, and then a USB port, and that kind of feels like it there. So that is kind of the basic level, and then these extra layers, the top and bottom, are what add-ons are to kind of expand the functionality. We have the SD RAM is right here through this kind of clear acrylic case, and that's really it. Like I really like how compact this is, which granted the MiSTER multi-system I have over here, sorry it's loud, is the exact same thing under the hood. Like these are very, very similar. I would rely on another channel that does more technical deep dives, but these two are the same thing. One is just more consoleized with, you know, USB ports on the front so they're accessible, nice on and off switch. The SD card comes on a little holder here. You have all the same kind of inputs that you have here, but I have like a digital audio out next to the HDMI cord. So I have the, oh, I'm blanking on what that is, SCART port as well to send stuff out. So this is just a kind of modified version. It's kind of all in one. It's meant to be a more console-like experience, and I thought that was cool. And then you have kind of the other version where you get these development board-looking things and then either build your own case or, you know, have them ship you a finished one here. So these are the two options. Let's play some games on here and let's talk through some things with this. Let me switch over to game view on this. So this is the MiSTER Multisystem, Qualico, Mars, MiSTER Multisystem, I guess is the official name. And it's what it looks like. It is playing a Genesis game. It has all these options. We went through this last time. So this is not the MiSTER Pi, but this will look identical here in a second when we swap these out. This is what I covered in the last videos. It's been great. I've played quite a bit of games on it and been kind of putting it through its paces. And so I was wondering what difference would we have when we plug in the Pi version of this. I guess not Pi, but Pi in name. So we'll just do our HDMI in here. And we've got to put the power cord in. So an interesting thing is the Mars FPGA MiSTER Multisystem comes with this barrel jack. It comes with a big beefy power cord as well, which I do appreciate, especially because there's some power related things that I guess are a little out of my depth here. So this apparently is a port that accepts USB-C power delivery. And by default, the MiSTER board wants to or expects to accept a, if I can remember this, 5 volt, 3 amp power through the USB port. And that would be like a slightly older power brick. And newer ones charge at much higher voltages. I'm not an energy person. I don't know this part. But because of that, if you send more power to it, it can accept that, but then it knocks down the power to what the board actually uses, so it doesn't fry it, I guess. It seems like, based on some stuff I saw on other sites kind of reviewing this that know a lot more than me, it seems like when you step that power down, and I think they mentioned some of this in the README for this device and kind of on the site, is that if you send more power to it, it can step it down, but that does heat up the components because you're having to do something with that energy. It'll produce heat. And so there might be a concern with putting a lot of power into this. So it seems like it's beneficial to find a power brick that is more suited for this and isn't supplying way too much. Looking through my house, there are shockingly few devices that use that. So I'm trying to track down something that gives it exactly the power that it says on the site that it wants, just so I feel a little more safe about it, I guess. Nothing I've seen has shown these devices to shut down or fail when this happens. It's just a slight concern over more heat buildup over time, maybe causing problems in the future. The other thing I'll mention is, let me switch back to this view. On this side, we have the, let me zoom this in for you, wrong way. We have the micro SD card. So I was a little sad to find that when I push this in, oh, it's working now. It comes all the way out. The day I got this, yesterday, this card would not come out of here. I had to use tiny little tweezers from an iFixit kit to get it out and pull it, and there, we kind of get some of it. I pushed it back in. It is kind of ejected, but not fully all the way. I can push it in again and again, and it just kind of like doesn't fully work. It's like the spring is either stuck or not fully going there. So that was something that I was not too happy about, and it's really hard to get out. So it did, I heard it kind of click into place here, but that's one thing I've noticed. I'm not sure if I'll like try to find a way to replace this, because I won't mess with this much, but it is a little odd. I don't know if anyone else is having problems with this, but that's one thing I've noticed so far, is just, that's the only kind of negative on the hardware itself, is nothing seems to be pressed up or like causing tension on this as far as I can tell. There's not, it's probably hard to see, but there is a gap between these components. So you can see through basically the whole device. I don't see anything pressing on it. It kind of just seems like a bad spring. Again, I don't know if anyone else is dealing with that issue so far, but let's get this plugged in with the power supply that is slightly larger than it expects and see it step down. And I will switch to our capture for this. It is now plugged in. And hopefully this will go off without a hitch and connect and display and see our video. Okay, there's the static. And here we are. This is, I guess I'll switch to the top view just to show you. It is powered on. It has this user light blinking. I honestly don't know what that does. There's a lot more research I need to do on this, but just from a just hopping into this, plugging it in, I wanted to show what the experience was. Here is the kind of home screen for this. This is exactly what you'd see on my Mars, MiSTER, Multisystem, Qualico, all that. There's not much difference. You can get this board and get this experience kind of out of the box. I do like, and there seems to be a MiSTER wallpaper project. I don't know how much of this is kind of preloaded or pre-installed or something that Taki has pushed for versus how much is just the basic MiSTER installation. Again, I was kind of wondering if I would do this from scratch and learn more about it by doing it, but it came pretty assembled, so I haven't done anything with it yet. So that's it's got its ups and its downs depending on how much you want to tinker with this. I think for most people, having it kind of set up and usable from the get-go without much work is a good thing. And the SD card that is in there was the one that came with the device. All I did was get some other things ready for it and run an update real quick. Yeah, let's talk about this menu. So going here, I've got the ability to hit the home button on the controller. Anything that you plug into it, like I'm just using this 8BitDo Pro 2 controller. It uses this little RF adapter. I plug that in, and I can use this to go to the kind of home menu here. So I can go between the kind of MiSTER menu and then selecting all the different cores, the system settings here. And one thing I noticed right off the bat is when you go into scripts, there aren't a ton of scripts in here. The one thing I really appreciated about the Qualico, MiSTER, Mars multisystem, I'm really stumbling over these names because there's a lot of words in there, and I'm honestly not 100% sure on the like best way to call this thing without just rattling them all off. So if that's annoying, I'm sorry. That came very, very set up. Like there was nothing I had to do to it, which is what I was interested in, and just let me test this out in the most ideal experience, where almost as if a friend had set this up for me and said, here, just go try it. That's what I was interested in. So it had a ton of scripts in here. A lot of them, honestly, I don't know what they do. This seems to be pared down to maybe just the basics. One thing I noticed was there's just an update command in here, update script. And on the Qualico version, I have an update all script, which maybe that pulls more in than update. I'm not sure. So that is just one thing. Again, this is where I'm falling behind just because I don't know MiSTER as well as I should. I'm just interested in it and trying to learn my way through it. So I see less scripts in here by default. Again, may not be a bad thing. It may just be making it less complicated for somebody to use this for the first time. You have the, I guess, other ways to go through and go through the settings on here, remapping keyboard, defining buttons, setting up scripts, all that stuff. I believe what is in here is a 64 gig card. I think that's what was in. I don't want to take it out and it's running. Did it say on the back of the box? It didn't say, but it did come with one. I believe it was 64 gigs, just a micro SD card, and it had a lot of this to where you could just plug it on and use it. All I did was run update, and yeah, it's got a bunch of wallpapers on here, which is cool to see. Every time you turn it on and off, I guess we can plug and unplug it and see that. Actually, if we go into a core and back out, it'll probably do that as well. So let's just go into one of these, and I hope we're getting audio. I haven't done that yet. It didn't find something, so I guess this is a good example of this hopefully working. And I'll show you the other part of this that is interesting. So, oh, sorry, wrong camera. Right now, I'm on a screen with nothing because the core did not load. Oh, it did boot me back to the main menu. That's nice. So that failed and booted back here, but the thing I was going to demonstrate is there's no off button on this. It's just that you yank the power cord and that's it. That really makes me feel bad. I like having an off button. It feels weird to just yank the power cord. Maybe I've been trained by Windows and Mac yelling at me if I unplug a USB device, but it does concern me a little bit when I see that. So it is one thing that is not bad, not good in my mind, because I'd rather have a power switch, but it's something you can add to. I've seen accessories that you can get for these that will have a power button and handle that for you. So there are ways around it, but this feels more tinkery because it is not an all-in-one, like everything's set up. On this, I have a power switch. Sure, it's all 3D printed, and there's, you know, a lot of stuff going on in here, and it costs a lot more, but it's just a little difference between these two, and that in this, you are getting a more tinkery, probably more to what most people deal with when they're, you know, using a MiSTER. And if you want that, that's great. We've got a lot more options now. Let me pull the menu back up for this. And let's go to a console and just let me head back to the Genesis. And let's boot up Rocket Knight Adventures, and we'll go to that same spot just to show you. I've not noticed anything on here that is different at all. I have seen videos of people comparing different things. I had heard that apparently some of the SD RAM maybe had a different timing or had some issues. I haven't paid super close attention. And I was just, interested in how this would compare, and it is as identical as I can tell. Again, this is a layman. This is someone who does not know all the ins and outs of these things and just thinks they're cool and interesting and wants to kind of get into this. And I've noticed nothing. Seems to be just a cheaper MiSTER, and everything plays just like I would expect, except for me, not playing well. That I can't tell any difference. It's not like there are any advanced features on the DE10 Nano, on the Mars multi-system, Qualico, any of that stuff. It is all the same core chip at the end of the day. And then very, very similar boards with smaller modifications. So anything in my mind that would be different would be very small. And from the kind of videos I've seen so far and people reviewing this and people looking at all this, there's seemingly a negligible change to these devices with maybe some slight cut downs. I've seen some people refer to the fact that you might stick to a DE10 Nano if you're doing development, just so you're working on the original board and not a clone board. But it seems like, oh, I need to remember how to do the rocket jump, and this might not be mapped correctly, so we'll talk about that. But it seems like this is perfect. This is what I would recommend to anyone getting into this, just because it's so much cheaper to get into. If you get that $99 board, you get all the options to modify the video on these cores and play with all these cool, pieces of history in a way that you weren't able to before. Why would you want to border on this? I assume that's something the Genesis maybe actually displayed in. There's different ways to switch the sound to be like the different models of Genesis in here. There's just all kinds of options that I think are so interesting and cool, because this is trying to replicate real hardware, and being able to modify the quote-unquote real hardware running while it's running is very cool to me. So I guess at the end of the day here, it is a MiSTER, and it seems to work really well. Yeah, so Whiskey Runner 1. This is... Snack is Serial Protocol. Okay, I did not know that. This is Mr. Pie Batch 2 that I got. So, I don't know if that narrows it down. I think that's the one, the most recent one. I saw that there were Batch 3 pre-orders, but that seemed to be January, February. So, do you have one of these? Are you interested in getting one of these? Whiskey Runner 1? Because I've been very impressed so far. I honestly do not know fully what I'm going to do with this version yet, because I do have this one, and I truly don't know if I want to keep two versions of this around. I actually used this today and hooked it up to a CRT monitor and was playing stuff on it and had people try it, and it's just fun. I kind of like that there's a big shell, all these plugs, it looks consoleized and kind of blends in with a bunch of stuff, could sit under your TV. This looks more tinkery, but it is so small. I kind of forget that there's just a tiny device inside this big plastic shell over here, and seeing how tiny this is and how powerful it is really impressive to me. Lace Mushroom. I'm still waiting for mine. It's in Dallas, waiting for USPS pickup. Oh, cool. Yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think when you get yours in. Have you done any MiSTER stuff before, or will this be your first device? I've only had this other one of mine maybe a couple months at this point, but I've really enjoyed it. Let's go to some different cores in here. I think the biggest nerve-wracking thing for me was when this went to the customs check, and I was worried that was going to take multiple days. I was surprised with how quickly it got here. I think it like from shipping, it felt like it was like maybe 3 days to get here, if not shorter. That I was very surprised to see. But this has all these cool backgrounds. It is odd to me because I think of this as just like a retro device, that the backgrounds are like 1080p, or they scale to whatever monitor you're on. So there were a bunch of pixel art ones that I was like, oh, it must be, low resolution and scaling it up. No, just the background seems to scale to whatever, and then once you run one of the cores, that's when it outputs the resolution that you need. But let's go to PlayStation 1. I've been playing with this lately and been super impressed with the PlayStation 1 performance in here. And this should be what requires this extra SD RAM, so... let's see. Lace Mushroom. First device. 380 was too much for my gaming budget. Taki did good if it works when it gets here. Yeah, I don't know how long you've been in here, but the only issue I've had is with the... Let me go to this top view. Is with the micro SD card. It doesn't fully pop out when I press it in to kind of lock it in place and then press it again to pop it out. It kind of slowly moves out, and I had to use tweezers to get it out the first time. Hopefully that is not a widespread issue, and I may look into maybe getting some replacement stuff to it, or not, if it doesn't bother me that much. So far it hasn't, but I don't know how much I need to get in and out of this device going forward, and if it'll become a pain, or if it's just kind of the same. It worked great a second ago and then didn't another time, so who knows with that. And okay, we're back to this. Let's pick out something for... Let's go to Croc 2. I was playing a little bit of this the other day. And hopefully this is loading. This is the first time I've tested a PlayStation game on this one. If I have configured something wrong, that might be on me, but it is odd that it is not. Okay, let's try a different. Will Croc 1 work? Anytime I tried this on the Qualico, again, a lot of that was pre-set up for me as part of that bundle. It had no issues loading this. Let's see if anything will load. If not, I will turn it off and turn it back on, and that is the extent of the troubleshooting I am ready to do at this point without looking at a wiki. Okay, let me turn it off. Again, that's the first time I've touched it, or tried the PlayStation on it. This is me learning how to use this device. There's a new background. I don't fully know what that's from. This is one thing I'd wondered about because this doesn't have the update all script. I had wondered if the update script somehow doesn't grab all, if you know what I mean. I was wondering if there was some bit, and that's why the update all script exists, and why there's a difference from them, I do not know. The videos I watch about MiSTER all talk about run update all, get the latest cores, and so that's kind of what I've been going by. But it does not seem to load up any PlayStation games. I do not know why. Let's see if... It's not even doing the loading animation, which I find very strange. Unless I've got something weird with my controller. Let me plug something else in and see if this will do. Go back to monkey, go back to SNES. Donkey Kong Country? Sure. Do you have to put in the BIOS somewhere? I had copied over everything I thought from my MiSTER multisystem. So I thought that was set up. Again, this could 100% be on me, and I may just have to do some troubleshooting. But I was not against there being something like this happening, because this is something that you'll have to do with this. That's what I was kind of trying to imply, is that this is a little more do-it-yourself, because you won't have the, I guess, way to assume this is all set up correctly. Like, Taki has set up things for this. I'm using a different controller to see if maybe the select button wasn't working, but I don't have more to troubleshoot in me right now than that. I believe all the BIOS just go in the same folder as it, so maybe I didn't set that up correctly. Yeah, maybe I didn't copy that over. So that could just be on me. Let's check out another core and go to that. Let's go boot out something else. Let's try N64. Let's see if N64 will work with this. And I can show off the other part of this that I'm pretty excited for. Oh, wow, that's the Sega Genesis Collection background. And what I'm going to do on this is plug in another controller type. Let me get something loaded, and we're going to switch to a different controller. So that snack port is very cool. I think that's neat. The one thing I'd invested in before using all this was, or I guess before using the Mr. Pi, was this MiSTER add-ons reflex adapter. And what this is supposed to do is I can plug this in USB, and it will let me use so many different controllers. It is seemingly an option in addition to snack and that snack port. So the one downside of the snack port is that the core, as far as I understand it, has to be built with support for that specific controller. It has to have snack support built into the core itself. So if a developer has not added that, you won't be able to use your Genesis controller on the Genesis core. What this is meant to do is to get around that a little bit. It also has the added benefit of it just uses plain USB, not snack USB, to plug into anything. So you could use this on, supposedly, your like Switch or PC or whatever else. And it uses an HDMI connection into a bunch of different things. These from MiSTER add-ons can be used also in their Snack and Snack X adapters and things like that, where they let you do like 4 players through USB. The problem is with Snack is, since you have to wait for the developer to build it into the core, which a lot of them seem to have that support, you can't control the on-screen menu. And if you want to do that, this is helpful because it will get around that. It maybe adds a little bit of latency. I'd seen some reports that they put out about it. So it may not be the perfect solution, but I did think it was cool that I could, and again, I could use a Snack X adapter and get the same functionality. But this, I'm connecting a Wii Pro controller to this, or the like Wii Classic Controller Pro, and I'm able to use that on here, which I just think is cool. And I've got a bunch of different ones here. I have the one for N64, which I think I showed off in the last video we did about these. And I got a bunch of other ones. I got one for the Super Nintendo. I got one for the PlayStation. I got one for the Genesis. And then I got one for the NES. So I can use all my old real controllers for this, which I find very cool, and hook those up. So let me see if a core is going to load on this other one. Yay, it will. Okay. And let's switch over to this. Is this the ideal? Probably not. I probably should have plugged a different controller in. Let's see. Lace Mushroom. Guess MiSTER doesn't throw up a BIOS not found message. Yeah, that seems like it's speculation, is that there might be something with the BIOS on there. But here we go. Here's the N64 core running on this, and I'm, you know, probably not doing the ideal controller because I'm not using an N64 controller, but I'm using this Wii Pro controller on here, and let's look at some options. So the one thing I can't do with this OSD menu is, let's see if I can switch it back here. Oh, I'll go to my top down just to show you what I'm messing with. So there are options on here to where you can change the type of controller that's being used in here. It auto detects my Wii when I turn it on. This is a really not the right refresh rate, but you can see Wii flash by there. So it detects that. Let's see. I don't know actually if it supports hot swapping, but let's see if it does. So let's say I'm in the N64 core here, and I want to use an N64 controller. So I'll use this little adapter, plug it in. I'll plug it in with this HDMI cable. And it doesn't seem to support hot swapping, so we'll just turn it off and back on. It also still thinks it's Wii. Let me switch it to N64 original range. And it's rebooting, and now it has N64 original range set up there. So we'll go back to core, and now I'm able to use a real N64 controller for this, which is the ideal, because when I found third-party N64 controllers or using any other controller out there for an N64 game, I feel like the control using the joystick is way off and feels super strange to me. So I really like being able to plug this in. So good at this game in the late 90s, Lace Mushroom. I picked this game up semi-recently, and I've not played much of it. And it is much tougher than I thought. It does not feel like a SSX to me, which is really my only experience in a snowboarding game like this so far. And it feels so much more hardcore and like strict about how I land, and the races seem extremely hard, even at the round one that I tried. So I'm interested to try more of this and actually learn how to do this game, because wow, I do not know how to do it. I got my jump button and tricks, I guess, but I don't even remember how to do most of this. I guess it's good that I haven't crashed, and that might be my famous last word. But I don't believe I've changed any settings on this. Oh, no, I didn't mean to pull that menu up. I just want to pause the game so that I can show a feature on this. The one problem I see is that currently the start button on the N64 controller is not working. That may be something I need to mess with in this snack adapter, because I did update its settings to support more of these controllers earlier. But what I wanted to do was to change some of the N64 settings in here. And, oh, I didn't realize I could switch my board like that. But yeah, this person is so far ahead of me. It seems like you really need to learn how to play this game well, because speed really matters. And I have no idea how to catch up. Where's my boost here? Where's my insane abilities and tricks? They seem to be in SSX and not here. But this seems like a more legitimate race than the things that are happening in SSX. So let's see if we can just get to a static screen and we can go through some of the settings in this. Lace Mushroom looks perfect for how I remember this game. Yeah, the N64 stuff I feel like looks great. Whether or not you like or dislike the N64 look, or worry that is not that the console doesn't look good, I've seen people argue that, and I have such nostalgia, so I can't view it without those goggles. But let's go into some of the video settings here. So this is what I thought was cool, is that you could just turn this off and do clean HDMI, and you'll notice immediately like the text is so crisp up there. You see the like dithering around time to where it's doing that gradient around the kilometers per hour, damage, all of that. You see it on like the board image in the bottom, on a lot of the landscape. The clean HDMI is a little divisive to me because I feel like it loses some of the charm and makes things maybe too sharp. I feel like in most cases I'm interested in things being super sharp, but I do like with this, you can turn off the bilinear filter that gets applied to everything, which just immediately makes, if you look at the map, here's bilinear filtering on. If you look at the map and second, and then let's turn it off, it looks like real pixels. It doesn't look just blurry in here, which is something I very much enjoy in this. The other thing you can do is just turn off blurring completely and apply that on top. You can change gamma, you can turn off dithering. You can see it in the top left by time. You can see that dithering right up there. And if I force this, it will get rid of some of that. It doesn't get rid of all. Who knows what it's doing to do that. Maybe just introducing more colors or some way to blend it. But I like that you can modify that stuff. You can turn off the N64 anti-aliasing, which this is where it gets a little divisive to me, is that it seems like the divot and anti-aliasing, I've seen weird things with the textures and polygons that it seems like a lot of things rely on this to get that N64 look and to make some of the graphics. So a lot of times I've just been turning off the bilinear filter to where things look actually sharp for once. And then there's also interesting options like the texture filter. And this is shocking to me. I had seen some stuff about how the N64 uses a special texture filter, like maybe a 3.1, and it's what gives the textures this smooth look. And in some cases, that makes it look so different. If you'll look at the side wall, like I think the blurry in this case with that filter looks perfect. And then you turn it off, and it is crisp to a degree that I don't enjoy. So there's just interesting stuff like that. Like being able to turn that on and off is so interesting to me. And honestly, it makes it look like a PlayStation game of having those crisp textures up there. And then if I sorry, I'm trying to do this all at the same time. If I turn that filter off, and then those look like rocks. It is blurring them in a way that I feel like they took advantage when making the art, and losing that, I think, loses some of the charm. So the cool thing is you can modify all of this. You can choose what you want to keep. And I know the PC emulators, you get so many options. But I like that this gets so close to the original hardware with just small tweaks. And if they're the tweaks you want to make, you can do that, which is super interesting to me. It's probably not for everyone. I think if you're interested in a MiSTER, you probably know who you are. You probably know you want to recreate these games, maybe how they actually were, versus seeing them at the best they could possibly be, like, remade in. You can go to Nintendo Switch Online and play a lot of these N64 games and Super Nintendo games. You can get Genesis collections and do all of that and get the games playable to a degree that most people will like. And in a lot of cases, I play those games. I played a lot of N64, Super Nintendo, Game Boy games on Nintendo Switch Online. I've played them on the Wii, the Wii U, Switch, all kinds of stuff. And I don't care that much. There haven't been many cases where I've been like, this is awful. I can't play it this way. But I do like that the MiSTER just gives so many options. And it's such a community-driven project that has so many new things going on. Seeing like the progress on the Saturn cores, a console that I've never touched before, is really interesting to see. And it feels like a lot of people who are just interested in seeing these consoles in like their best light they could ever be in. And the emulation stuff on PC where you sharpen up all the polygons, that's for people too. I like that in some cases, but I like that we're just getting more options, that no matter what aspect of this, however you want to play your games, there seems to be an option out there for you. And I think that's really cool, especially with these boards being so cheap. Like, being able to hop in and play this for $99 is extremely impressive. Sure, you could load these on your phone and do the same thing, but I like plugging in a real controller and getting the experience, but not having to rely on aging hardware and pins that are getting dustier and dustier no matter how much I clean them. It's really cool project. Let's see. Lace Mushroom, yep. You already play Mario 64 at 1080 and you're looking for something else. Yeah, I a lot of that stuff's cool. Like, I don't want to undermine how much those projects are also interesting, and it is cool to see that stuff. But I just love that there's all these options, and maybe it's me liking the history of this and liking to see where it came from. But the clean HDMI is an option. It's not what I like. I'm very interested to see what the analog 3D will do, because I think, or I'm worried that people bought that console thinking it's going to be like sharp pixels or sharp polygons, and it is going to be this. And with that being so much more expensive than a MiSTER, what benefits does that have? So I'll be interested to see that. But yeah, let me run into some more cores and do some stuff here. But I've been really happy with this thing so far. I haven't played it a ton. I've just loaded stuff up and tried some things. But for the most part, everything has played exactly like the full MiSTER multi-system setup I have. The only benefit of this is there are things that I haven't had time to read on a wiki that the MiSTER multi-system Qualico stuff, like, since that was all set up for me, I didn't have to fuss with any of it. But it is, I would say, prohibitively expensive to get these. And the DE10 Nano being, well, I just looked and it's like $230 plus. The whole kit of this, the all-in-one bundle, I think is $180 or close to that. It's, I believe, still under $200 to get the full kit with this. Sure, it doesn't have some of the cool options like the Tap 2 where you can put a card on it and get it to read those games. It doesn't have the SCART port in it. It doesn't have a power switch. But those are all things that you can get this and build up to it, which I think is really cool. Like, getting that $99 board and then upgrading it with things you want to see is very, very cool to me. Let's go back to the main menu here and pick something else to play. Let's put this through its paces. So N64 worked flawlessly without any changes. Who knows what I need to do for the PlayStation version. I think even with the kind of all-in-one Qualico multi-system, you're still going to have to tinker sometimes. I just haven't gotten to that point, and thankfully I haven't had to, but it's something that you will have to mess with. And I went to the computer cores, which I don't want to do. Let's see. I had run Saturn stuff on the other one, so let's see how this works. And I don't have a Saturn controller. I guess I could do this Sega Genesis one and see how that works. I haven't tried that cord yet, so let me switch over to that. So we're going to turn this reflex adapter off for a second. I'm going to grab my Genesis adapter. And I think I had a, yep, Genesis controller. So that's all plugged in. I got this turned on. It will boot up, and I'm going to switch the mode to, I forgot to set that mode up. So no. There's one thing with the reflex adapter that is a little strange, is that it only has so much memory for controller configurations. So while I do think this is cool, because it will kind of auto-map things and let me use the menu, I forgot that I did not load a profile on it for the Genesis. I have NES and Super Nintendo, PlayStation, and N64 and Wii. So that's an odd thing. You can get ones that are passive adapters and go in the snack port and use these. I believe it's Snack X that does that. So I might be interested in getting one of those just so I don't have to load this up. But I do like this for the main feature of being able to use this on my PC, being able to control the menu, but it might not be for everyone. So I'm just going to use a playing controller for this because that didn't work like I exactly wanted it to. And let me get this Saturn one set up. Okay, and we'll see if this will boot. So far, yeah, it seems to be working unless it takes me to the CD player menu, which I'm hoping it won't do. Okay, here we go. So this is loading up Burning Rangers to play in here. And yeah, this seems to have worked out of the box, which is nice. Again, not entirely sure what I've done wrong with the PlayStation core, but the Saturn one seems to work fine. And we've got everything up and running here. The Saturn core has been really interesting to see all the kind of updates to it, and it seems like it's in like active development with a lot of this, so that's been cool to see. Let's see. Lace Mushroom. This is my first MiSTER because the 155, it'll be interesting setting it up for the first time as long as all my old R3, 6S, Raspberry Pi, ROMs, PC stuff work on it. Yeah, I mean, other than that PlayStation thing, which again, I haven't had that problem with the other one, which is kind of pre-configured for me. Everything's worked great on it. There's been kind of a learning curve of just like the menus and the settings and stuff like that, but that's going to come with anything. And maybe it's bad that the ease of setup, the pre-configuration on that MiSTER multi-system, Qualico, that it's made me a little complacent and just thinking like, oh, it all works out of the box. I barely have to change any settings. So there's definitely a little more I have to mess with in this new one that's not as pre-configured. But at minimum, even if I mainly stick with my kind of consoleized version, I am excited to load this up and, you know, let friends borrow it and try it out and then see it, because I think it's just such a cool setup. Yeah, sorry, I just want to mess with some of these options. Like, that's not super special, but oh, that's interesting. You can change the actual correction on it, which maybe some games needed that. Maybe that was a thing they required on some. There isn't many options on here. Like, the N64 kind of spoiled me with how cool some of those options are. And this is another thing. So let me go back to this top view so I can show you. I'm just using this 8-bit Do Pro 2 or whatever this is called. And nothing is working for Burning Rangers currently. So I do like that it has ways to configure this in this itself. You can change stuff. Like, this is the option I mentioned earlier for the snack adapters. You have to go turn it on in the settings. So if you have a Sega Saturn controller, one of these adapters, plug it into the snack port, you can use that real controller from your Saturn on here and not, you know, put wear and tear on the laser for the disc or something like that. And then if I go to the MiSTER menu, I can define Saturn buttons, and I can set this up and say right, left, down, up, A, B. And I don't want alternate buttons. Okay.
Do you see that fuel tank?
And now I've got buttons working. So some of that seems to save to the core after I do it the first time in here. Some of it does not. It'll depend on seemingly the core. Maybe I haven't hit the right save button, but I have noticed a few times that I have to reconfigure per game, which is nice when this reflect adapter has all the controllers I want. I wonder if they'll release a version of this that has more of the mappings built in. But I do like the benefit of some in-between device or something that's saving the settings. So when I go into the core, I have all that stuff. Again, maybe a configuration thing I just need to learn to do that will make this all super simple. But that is one thing, just going into these. When I had people messing with the MiSTER today and playing some games on it, I was probably hovering a little too much, looking at things and trying to make sure, like, oh, okay, is the menu working? Are they sure how to get to here? So I'd be interested in how the MiSTER stuff kind of changes from now on. If people start consoleizing it even more to where it's really easy to just set up a little kiosk and have everybody go through the things, and to get rid of some of the I don't know, more techie stuff, or if people aren't interested in that. But I do, it can be so consoleized, and I kind of forget sometimes that there's a bunch of extra buttons that I've started to learn on here, and like how to navigate the menus that are a little strange, because you have the main menu, and then you have right goes to the sub menu, left goes to this network information. Some of that's a little strange. Like I sometimes forget where I am in a few of these menus, and I'm excited to see where this goes. Granted, I'm joining very late into the MiSTER project, it seems like. Let's see. Platinum Atom. Super cool. Could not... Oh, not really my thing personally, but I'd love to see how the different settings change the graphics. Super interesting from a design standpoint. Yeah, I think all that's cool. I've also been very jealous of your stuff, Platinum Atom, because you're playing a bunch of new stuff, and like I think I'd seen you mess with some retro achievements, right? And that seems very cool. I have not messed with any of that because I've been trying to go as close to the console as possible. Which again, I think both are extremely valid. I think it's so cool there are so many options, but I have been like, oh yeah, those the retro achievements seem so cool in some of those aspects, and I just have not messed with them very much yet. And I have mapped something so incredibly wrong in this game that I cannot remember how to hit the Y button. So let's see. Let's switch to another Saturn game. And I guess this is also one of the things I mentioned earlier, that the having an ability to hook up the N64 controller through like a snack adapter or through one of these reflex adapters or something is something I find extremely cool. Especially because when I was doing, what was it, my Bomberman video, I've been super inconsistent with releasing stuff, but when I was releasing working on the Bomberman video, let's see, I think I switched to my top-down camera here. I started using this controller, the Retro Fighters controller, that has like a nice stick. It's kind of in a traditional controller layout. It has the triggers on both sides. It has, you know, some interesting things to make the N64 controller more in line with modern controllers. And I hated this control stick. It made playing the game so difficult. Part of it was the like snapback of this. Whenever I'd let go of it, Bomberman would then like change direction because it would get read as going not to the middle, but to the right some, and then like back to the left. So Bomberman felt super stuttery, and I really was having trouble with the game over throwing bombs and aiming in the right directions. The second I switched to just using it, because I did capture that straight off the N64 through RetroTank. The second I switched to this controller with this stick, it felt perfect. Like there was nothing I had to change. None of the settings were messed up. It felt so easy to throw bombs and so like intuitive. Like everything worked in it. That has kind of warped me now that I'm like, well, maybe I need to use a a real controller from that console for every instance, right? Is it invalid? Like, am I gonna have some control issues with it that are only because they're translating how that controller used to work into a new controller and it messes it up in some way. So there's my radicalized controller opinion, that I just feel like playing with the real controller made such a difference in specifically Bomberman Hero and Bomberman 64 that I've kind of been like, now I need to use a real controller for everything. So do I need to track down a Sega Saturn controller to play some of these games, because that's the real experience, rather than mapping to a 4-button controller when it was meant to have 6 or anything like that. So yeah, that's one other thing where I think that is so cool about the MiSTER is that I can do that. That's actually an option for me. Granted, you could do the same. You could get a reflex adapter like this and plug it into your PC, or do, I'm sure, a million other things. They probably make USB controllers for those too. But yeah, it's just something I've learned to appreciate is real old controllers still work pretty good. I feel like the N64 controller maybe gets a bad rep, and I had such a better time playing with it than anything else in those games specifically. Let's see, Platinum Atom. Yeah, retro achievements are a cool idea, but some of the lists are brutal. Oh, just they go to like super difficult stuff. Yeah, that makes sense. Made a vid on Simpsons wrestling, and the achievement list was crazy. Ended up giving up almost instantly. Yeah, honestly, that reminds me of like the early days of 360 achievements where they would just be the most off the wall things, or like ones tied to being the number one in the world at multiplayer, and then you can't do that anymore, or it became impossible. Like, very cool, but yeah, I could see that getting out of hand. These things are really cool. A lot of knowledge with them. I hope you're doing well. Yeah, thank you. I hope you're doing well too. I've seen you've got a ton of subscribers recently. Really happy to see it. I'm glad you're like doing so well on here. Honestly, I'm not caught up with all of your videos. But I do try to watch them when I have time, and I'm just, glad to see you're doing well and killing it out here. It's really cool. I have not been nearly as consistent. But things just get in the way sometimes, and yeah, it's cool to watch you just like churning stuff out. It's awesome to see, especially with how many games you're like. I'm finishing these games with bare minimum completion criteria, and I feel like that's hard to carve out that time. So it's been really impressive to see you do that. Really, really cool. Yeah, I'm not good at Daytona, turns out. I just wanted to try something else on Saturn that didn't require the Y button that I've mapped so horribly. And I guess, are there any suggestions? I do want to stay away from the very copyright-prone makers of the Switch that have been going around. So even though those things are on shelves behind me, I am not really interested in showing any of that because the fear. But yeah, if there's anything y'all want to see, let me know. And I'll probably spare you from watching me do too many laps of this. How many? Oh, 8 laps. Okay. I guess I'm kind of close. What? Oh, I'm in 14th, the 40th position. Okay. I really don't know much about NASCAR. I forget that there's a bunch of cars on this track, and I'm not braking at all. That may also cause an issue with this. Did anybody else play Daytona? I know one of my friends raves about this game, but he's a huge Sega Saturn fan and has been picking up Japanese Sega Saturn, Japanese games, and I believe he got a, what is it, the optical drive emulator to be able to run more stuff on it and put patches in and stuff. So I'm very interested in checking that out, but I just have no real knowledge of this console. It's been interesting. I've been watching a lot more videos on it and about this system. Wow, I didn't do well. Which really just completely passed me by. Lace mushrooms. Don't like your kneecaps cracked. I was a Ridge Racer guy. Sega and Outrun guy. Do I have? Let's go see. Let me go see if I can switch to a. Oh, okay, yeah, I wanted to boot up Ridge Racer on the PlayStation, but that wasn't launching for me. Wow, I'm really, that's really gonna bug me. I'm gonna have to go look at that tonight and see what I did wrong there. Why is PlayStation not working out of the box here? What did I do? Let's see. Let me switch to something else. Reset back to the main menu here. Let's see, I don't need this reflex adapter currently. I do have a USB here that's plugged in just for, I was trying to test, like, again, another thing, this is nothing. These things are super cheap online from what I can tell, but having something like a little keyboard to type stuff in is also kind of a necessity with this. It doesn't come up too often, but when it does, being able to hit an escape is really beneficial. That came with the Qualico MiSTER multi-system setup. and it's been really handy. That's one of the things that I'd love to, again, I maybe out of my depth, maybe people don't want this, but I'd really love for it all just to be navigated by controller, like for it to be super smooth to get in and out of that. And I'm interested to see if that happens going forward. Let's see. I don't know that I loaded this up correctly, but let me see. A, B. Nope, I didn't load that on. I had, maybe I'll switch over to the other one a little bit. But there was a game that I kickstarted called Good Boy Galaxy. And it was a, I guess, modern GBA game. They went on Kickstarter. I think they have the PC port, I believe, is fully out now. And with the PC port, it's seemingly a emulated Game Boy Advance game. Like one of the Kickstarter rewards that I'd picked because I was super interested in it was they're sending out a real Game Boy Advance game that will work in a GBA. And with the Steam version, you get access to the GBA ROM and you can play it on a real GBA or on the MiSTER. I loaded it up on the multi-system and I forgot to copy it to this so that I could show it in here. But that was another cool thing of like loading homebrew on this is such a cool option. And what we can do is I can load some of that. Let me see. But there's been so much, the GBA Game Boy development with so many tools out there has a lot more homebrew options on it, which is very cool to see. And I just think like it is so cool to get modern games on this. Even if you're not using it for retro, you could still get a use out of it by doing that stuff on there. Let's see. If I can switch to another console. Sorry, I'm just trying to save y'all from looking through the menu, but maybe this is more boring to just stare at the console. I'm not sure. I wanted to play this just in, let's see, I wanted color. Okay, back to the screen. This game can only be played on a Game Boy Color. Did I do the wrong setting? Let me go mess with this. See why I'm not getting this in the right format here. Here's another the fun troubleshooting. Okay, I think I can force it. There we go. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to obscure. Okay, there we go. We're in Game Boy Color mode here. Platinum. Really. Oh yeah, the Dragon Age series. That I started a tiny bit of Dragon Age Veilguard, and I thought, oh, should I go back to those old ones? And then your video popped up almost immediately. That I was like, oh my gosh, that is that is so much game you went through. That is unbelievable. Took me 18 months to hit the 1K subs. Just another 3 to hit 2K. Oh wow, you made it. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like things had moved faster past the 1K point for me as well, but I just haven't been consistent enough. But I've still had people join. It's been very cool to see. I just need to be more consistent. But yeah, it's wild to see how the like barrier seems to be 1,000 people to scrounge them up, and then that's what YouTube decides is like, oh yeah, more people could find this person now, even though, you know, we've let a select few see their good content at this point, and then they slowly bubble it up. It's just so strange. Hope to see another video. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I am editing one that is close, but sometimes it's just hard to find time. It's been a little difficult lately, but yeah, I know the Dragon Quest III remake came out recently, and I recently picked up Dragon Warrior 3 on the Game Boy Color, which I had heard was a very impressive port, and I basically know nothing about this series. One of the things that I thought was cool is I did not realize. Let's go fast. Wait, did I turn it to slowest option? I didn't even read the... Well, this is going to be a pain. I didn't realize that you can change palettes on this and and change other stuff on this. So if you go into some of these audio and video stuff, you can load like specific palettes if you want one. You can also, you know, do the normal scaling stuff. You could turn on the frame blending, because you'll see on some old Game Boy Color, Game Boy games, and I think Game Boy Advance as well, when they would try to do transparency, they'd basically flash a color like on and off really quickly, and it would blend them together. So you can do that stuff. That's on most emulators of like being able to do that. You can also go in and correct the colors, which I really appreciate, because I feel like anytime I put these into something else, they immediately look like the most like eye-burning bright that I've ever seen. And I like putting it to the corrected, because again, that's just in my head of like, well, they were viewing it on these screens at the time to be played on, so it feels like those muted colors, even though sure you can see it all bright, like those start to look like real rocks underneath the character when maybe they didn't before. And then let me see, there's the other option I had is if I go out of here and then over to the right, video processing, this is where I could load presets. So right now it's nearest neighbor scaled. It is the like super sharp. Sorry, my tongue just whistled there. It's extremely sharp, which for the longest time, this is what I've stuck to. But going back to Super Nintendo games, and especially Game Boy, it helps a little bit to have one of those and get something that looks like the real console, which I find very cool. It is also impressive to see. I love the analog pocket. I have played so much on that, and wow, I really can't see this keyboard. Sorry, I got completely distracted once I needed to type something and did that. Sure. Yep. Okay. Oh, I did hear Dragon Quest III Remake also has like a personality quiz at the bottom, or at the start of it. But yeah, the analog pocket, I absolutely love playing games on that. I think the screen's really nice. I've had issues with the D-pad and diagonals, I believe, are a little weird. But for capturing stuff, it's been so great. I love the palettes it has on it, and like, or not palettes, but the filters that you can put on it that I think look really nice and make it look like that Game Boy, and just make it look, like, I think this looks really good. Maybe other people don't. I know it does darken the image some, but being able to turn this stuff on, I just didn't even realize that this was an option on here. I kind of forgot this was a thing. So I can keep what's on here, or I can go back to nearest neighbor. Like I can switch between these and display it however you want, which again, just more options. I know that these things exist if you're running on a PC as well. But I was really impressed. Because I just didn't remember or even think to look for this. And it's just very cool to see. I think it looks great. It is amazing that this open source project has had so much like love and attention and just care put into it. It's really impressive. Analog Pocket is very cool, but they are not quick to update it. So the open FPGA cores have been really cool on that, but having a fully open source MiSTER project has been really cool to see. So, let's see. Platinum Adam heard a conspiracy that your vids get pushed harder after 1K since YouTube gets paid from them now. Oh. Yeah, I would I would believe any conspiracy theory about YouTube cares more when they're getting paid about it. Just about to finish Veilguard, and it's pretty good. Really excited to see the new DK3 you mentioned, but I also want to get around to 7 Rebirth and Metaphor at some point soon. Yes, way too many games. Veilguard was just impressive because I feel like I haven't booted up just like a game that felt very made for PC, and I know the console ones are out there, but I barely play games on my PC, I feel like, now, and it was really cool to see that boot up and be like, oh, wow, this looks really good, and actually it's really maxing out all my all my graphical settings and making my computer whine a little bit. But I thought it was really cool. I did not realize it was going just like full action with like blocks and parries and things like that. I did not expect that. It is very interesting to see that. I've not really played much of the others, so I don't have a huge knowledge base for it, but that was cool to see. I played a little bit of Metaphor and really been enjoying that, but that's like my I just want to rot on the couch for a day or something. I'll just play some of that because I know it's going to be really long, so I've just fit it in when there's just like some downtime and I don't want to focus on something crazy. But wow, I start as just a monster in here. What am I? Sorry, am I not? Maybe I'm not supposed to be burning villagers like this, or is this like the story of the town? How interesting. Yeah, seeing the Dragon Quest III remake stuff and then seeing that it also came out for Game Boy Color is wild to me, that this made the jump. Like, is this bad? Am I supposed to be attacking this? Lace mushroom quality filters. Yeah, I'm really impressed with these filters. We won't play much of this RPG probably. Is this like bad? Like, is this a story thing? Am I supposed to have been doing this? Is this like I've made a horrible wrong decision on here? I am not sure. One thing I did finish recently, I don't know, Adam, if I've been interested in these, but I just finished Xenoblade Chronicles 3, which I love the Xenoblade games, and so I'm trying to figure out how I talk about a game that I've captured almost no footage for, because that's just been one that I've been playing like kind of like Metaphor. It was the spot that filled that over, like, I've just made tiny progress, and most of the stuff that I've tried to play, I record the entire game, and as I've gotten to longer games, I don't know how that's going to be possible. I don't know how you handle that, if you do capture the entire thing of like Dragon Age and then edit it down, or if you're just grabbing certain clips. But I've got some hard drives filling up, so I will have to determine how best to handle that from now on. But oh, this is probably not the way to play this game. I really skipped through a lot of stuff there. Or did I pick all the wrong options and I'm just like the villain now? But yeah, there's options there. I thought the other thing was cool is turning on like Super Game Boy support and having stuff there that can handle it is very cool to see. Let's go back to the main menu. And I think I've been... I don't even know how to look at the time on this. Okay, it's about an hour and a half that I've been streaming this. I don't know. Is there anything y'all want to see that I haven't covered here? Let me know. I honestly may switch over and show a little Good Boy Galaxy because I was kind of interested in that. But I guess my final wrap up with this is just the Mr. Pie here seems good. It seems like a good product that does seemingly exactly what the more expensive variations, the like official ones, do. Fine. Again, we did show the PlayStation but I believe that's just my setup. I guess I'll follow up if I have issues with that. I've had the issue with the micro SD card not coming fully out and having to use tweezers to get that out. I may check on repairing that if that is a reoccurring issue. But for every other thing besides PlayStation being my problem, the SD card maybe being a system problem, everything else has worked flawlessly. I've not noticed any difference on this. I am not the super MiSTER person that's going to be able to call that stuff out, though, so I'm not the forefront that you should be listening to on that. I just think this is a very cool thing, the fact that it's so affordable, and I am very interested in testing this out and seeing if this is something that I can, blanket recommend to friends over other things out there, over hey, do you want to play your retro stuff, get a Nintendo Switch Online subscription, or get a Steam Deck, or I don't know, get one of the classic NES Classics, NES Minis, any of those things. Like, this seems like it might be this all-in-one solution, or even the board is a little more set up, probably goes by the person on if they want to get in that deep. But I really like the idea of just handing someone one of these blocks and saying, plug it in and put an HDMI in, hook a controller up, and you'll be able to play all the games you remember in all the settings. I'd love to see how consoleized this can get, just for me thinking of friends who aren't going to want to fuss with that, or like if I were to give this to my brother and say like, oh, here's your go play the games we played as kids. I'd love to do that, but who knows if this is too much hassle, too much to fuss with, and something that it isn't worth it for someone who doesn't want to get in the weeds with that. But it seems like a very good DE10 Nano, 100% official MiSTER alternative. And yeah, I've been really happy with it. In the little bit I played, I thought the boxes looked cool. Nothing super special there. The fact that it doesn't come with a power brick is a little disappointing to me, just because I have to track one down that gets the exact voltage, because there is the worry over that getting a little too hot, stepping it down from a higher voltage power adapter in there or something. So small things there. I think for most people plugging in, you're probably going to be fine. Maybe for running the super complicated cores, you're going to run into some issues where you do want to investigate that stuff. But for someone grabbing a wireless controller, an HDMI, and a power cord, this seems so cool. And here's another MAME thing that didn't work that I'll have to investigate as I'm kind of clicking through options in here. And then if you want to go deep and get all these adapters and set it up like it is just your old console like you remember it, there's those options too. It seems like a great product so far from, again, my very beginner steps on this. Yeah, Lace Mushroom, please leave a comment when you get yours and find out if that SD is happening to you. I haven't even done searching. I got this in yesterday and was just making sure it was as updated and had things on it to show. But yeah, I'd be really interested in if you have that, or if it's just mine. I hope it is just mine. I hope that it's not affecting other people, because it just seems like a little bit of a pain. But it is something that's worried me a bit. But the games still load. It does stay in place. It just doesn't pop out as much as I would like it to. So, and let's end with a little bit of Metal Slug and look at some nice pixel art. And what options do we have with this? We've got audio and video, but we don't seemingly have anything super fancy. Let's look at the processing. Let's see what core specific things they have for Neo Geo. And it seems like there's not one. So some of those core specific ones are set up there, but you can just do scan lines. You can do this, which I think was interesting, the like display specific. If you have a very, again, specific display you want to use to display it out, you can do that. And there's, I guess, what that would look like. And you can turn it on or off and make it as blurry or not blurry, or scan lining or not scan lining as you want. Interesting things like that, like changing the gamma. There's just so many things in here. It's like so deep. You could spend probably the rest of your life messing with like settings and doing things in here. But just with someone hopping in and wanting to either view this as crisp as they want or any settings, it's very cool. Very cool to me that this is a thing out there. I'm sure it'll be 1 in 1,000 mass-produced SD card parts issue, but I'll leave you a message. Yeah, I'd appreciate it. And I probably just need to go look on Reddit, or I don't know if there's a FAQ on there about like if this is known issue or something like that. But yeah, very, very cool thing. I've been happy with the MiSTER in general. It is very cool to see it cheaper because it's been something that's been hard to recommend and not just say, look at this cool thing I have, friends. You probably shouldn't buy it at this price. You should probably wait. It seems like the time and the waiting is over, other than the waiting for MiSTER Pi to come back in stock. So, okay, I think I'm going to call it here. And yeah, so thank you all for joining and, looking at this with me. Hopefully this hasn't been too scatterbrained. I've got a lot of cables everywhere. It looks scattered around me. Hopefully this not come across in the video as much. And this has been, I don't know, cool to show off this hardware and just talk more about MiSTER because it is a very cool project. Really amazing open source support for this. And yeah, I'm very excited by this. I'm glad that this is getting in the hands of more people. Definitely leave a comment. Are you interested in this project? Are you, already into it? Do you have a lot of things to correct me on? I'd appreciate it because I have not spent the time to look at the wiki, and I know that's just not great. I need to look at that more. But appreciate y'all all watching. And yeah, hit me up with any MiSTER questions, any tips and tricks that you could tell me. I'd appreciate it. And I'll see y'all in the next video that will hopefully get edited and released sometime soon. Have a good Thanksgiving. Have good holidays with your friends and family, and I will see y'all in the next one. Thanks.